What's up? Hi, guys.
It's our last one.
Yeah, this is sad.
Yeah. We'll see you again.
I got choked up there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, all of your films are personal, but this one, obviously, especially so, since it began as this bedtime story for your daughters, and that got me thinking just how, I think, interesting bedtime stories are as an artistic format, especially when they form the basis of a screenplay, because they're these living things that change night to night. I would have assumed, depending on what the vibe was, if the kids wanted to be scared or if they wanted to laugh or something. And it's not so much then maybe the plot or the structure that drives the storyteller back to this bedtime story, or the listener to want to hear it again. There's something else, and I just wanted to know what that element was for you that kept bringing you back to this story.
Yeah, I mean, they always wanted to be scared. The two older ones. They're all here. They're all the girls are here today. I forgot I wrote that at the end. I was like, gee, I got choked up. I'm still choked up about it. That's what I used to always say to them. All right, one more time, but then go to bed after this. I mean, I think, as I was standing there trying to reflect, it was, I've spoken about this before in one of our Q&As about, what Bob Dylan means to me, that kind of connection to the universe artistically that didn't have a kind of a protective element to it. It's just burning pure, that's coming from some really pure place. And I think the stories I was telling the girls had that quality to it. And I think in my head, there's two parts to me. There's the kind of the businessman side of me, and then the kind of the pure artist side of me. And they coexist and they protect each other. But on this one, I was feeling like put the thinking business person away for a second and just, do the kind of jazz thing. And at least that's how I felt about it. When I was telling them that, it was no agenda of any kind other than just to entertain them and create magic in their lives through this story. So it had a kind of incredible purity of me, a version of me. And so, and strangely, I mean, it's hard to explain it now, but there's two types of movies that I've made. If you look at everything, it's like I make kids movies, like Stuart Little and others, and then I make these adult thrillers, and they're both very much me, and the thing that binds them is maybe a belief system and that kind of a childlike belief stuff in things, and so doing this is in many ways this is kind of the most me movie. Like, to know me, if all of you got to know me, this is more me than a lot of them are, because I'm showing you aspects of me, but this is kind of at the center, so it has a lot of aspirational quality for me, like, can you be this vulnerable, this open when I tell the story? So it wasn't necessarily, and it was kind of like a movement of plot, because they would be very aware of what happened last night and say, then what happened, and then they'd ask questions, well, why this, and how, and so it would kind of, they were their own little focus group, so they got, as we were driving the story forward.
And then they gave you the green light at one point. They told you to make it into a movie, or?
Well, again, it was so important, and all of it, that it's just so a pure version of being in a commodity-driven art form, and so it was. And I wasn't actually, strangely, I wasn't that involved in the marketing, and I was kind of putting everything away in some ways, and not thinking about how am I going to get it to you guys? What are they selling it on, and all that stuff. It was much more just like jazz.
I'm still thinking about what a surreal moment this must be for you, that your daughters are here now, and I want to ask you if you've how you thought about your relationship to this movie, 20 years later, back then, like how you maybe imagined your daughters who are now adults sort of thinking about this film.
Yeah, I mean, with as you guys know that have kids out there, it isn't what you say. They follow what you do and who you are. And I think they know we would, I'd burn the house down for an idea, and that, I don't care, if if it's something I believe in, and so that value system. They're all artists now. Two of them are professional artists, and one's in college. But and hopefully that the thing that you offer the world, that very unique, specific thing, that alchemy that makes you who you are, is the gift that you have to the world. And if you temper it, or you say, I'm going to hide that thing, my arrogance or my insecurity, if you hide that little, you're tempering the power of that voice. And so this was kind of almost like a cleaning of the system, so that I wasn't being the version that the world wanted me to be, but just being as pure as I could, and being super vulnerable to whatever happened. And then in that way, at least in my interpretation, that's what Bob Dylan teaches me, about how to be as pure as you can. But and hopefully that's the connection as they're going through life, not only as artists, but as human beings, that, that combination of who you are at any given moment is what's so beautiful.
We've talked about how like a parenthood runs across your work as a common theme, and I guess I just want to ask maybe a more personal question of just how has being a parent influenced or changed the course of your own artistic process? I mean, especially now that you're collaborating with your daughters in more direct ways more recently, and just like how has you growing as a parent over these years changed how you conceive ideas, how you approach them, how you even just collaborate on set with others?
Yeah, I mean, it is the center point of everything. I mean, if I was, I married my wife at 22, and if it had a different life and it was like a single dude, I don't know what these movies would be about. There'd be like Bad Dates or something. I don't know what they'd be about. But they're about this fear that this family, I can't protect them, and so I like act out them in the writing, and the fears of things, and the sanctity of this nuclear family, and how fragile it is, and how lucky I am to have it. So in different ways, I'm just working out those fears, and I think like Steven Spielberg, who kind of, when he made his movies when I was a kid, there was a lot of wonder as a child, that he was connecting with me, riding bikes outside, and finding something wondrous, your life becoming contacted with the supernatural and what that would feel like, and I think that kind of really resonated with me, and perhaps I go kind of a little darker, because I'm drawn to kind of what's on the other side of something very, very dark. Maybe not this movie as much as the others, but yeah, it's at the center of everything. When I think of a movie, like I'm just thinking of this new movie that I'm going to, and invariably, like it will become some versions of life of a and you can see my movies are now becoming more like generational movies about like different generations together.
This movie had perhaps your largest ensemble, maybe still, but it's also among your most contained films in terms of it being in this one location. And I think that sort of one location concept is something you've explored in different variations, especially more recently. But I'm wondering what this big in terms of cast of characters, and this small idea of setting it in one location, this like big and small framework kind of unlocked for you thematically, visually in this film.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drawn to minimalism, and drawn to really contained locations and contained movies. Every time I think of a movie, it always comes with something, some trapped in some kind of place. And the idea of like a group of people in an apartment building that start to realize they're all, characters in a fairy tale is kind of like a, supernatural, like Agatha Christie kind of, oh, I'm this person, I'm that person. And that was kind of the thesis in my head about who everyone was in the architecture of a fairy tale. And so I love containment, because it's as we talked about before, kind of insinuating something, especially the supernatural. Then when you see something that happens, finally a creature comes or something, it's breathtaking, because I've been showing you it through like a straw.
Can you talk about just these characters for a little bit? I think, and also just casting them in general, who you were looking for, who you were writing for, the type of people you wanted to sort of round out this cast. And I also want to ask about the role that you gave yourself.
And the Bob Balaban character was my favorite. He's so funny. Yeah, I mean, everyone had to kind of bring a humor. They auditioned, and it was kind of a tone that I was going for. This kind of I paired it with Princess Bride, because that was really kind of like the tone, that kind of eccentric. It's for kind of adults, but it's, kids can watch it, but the humor is witty, and so the humor had to be at the center of it. So I had to find actors that were physical actors that could be very, very at ease with the comedy of it.
Yeah, I was when I was rewatching again in the back tonight, I was thinking more about this play with language that this film and Princess Bride has. Like, for some reason, I was associating the babies on the half tip with anybody want a peanut, or I don't know. All right, I have a very peculiar, or I have a specific question about Reggie.
Yeah.
We learn why he's the purpose ultimately of why he was working on one side of his body, but
Where did that come from?
did he ever have an actual reason besides just this general?
Well, that came from we had someone working for me, and he would only work out his upper body, and his legs were like sticks, and I was like, bro, you look silly. And so that put in my head this guy that worked for me, who was like really jacked, and then had these almost like emaciated legs. He's like, you never work out your legs. And so that was what gave me, I was like, oh, what if a guy just wanted to see how big he could get on one side?
Okay.
Just people's eccentricities. Like, I would always write down, that's odd. And, these quirky people that get lost in the way they think. And then is there a higher purpose? Like, for this person that worked for me, was there a higher purpose?
Yeah.
That his legs were really skinny.
I mean, all of these characters sort of do form this kind of microcosm of I feel like the state of the country back then too. But all right, I do want to also just turn to the visuals and the visual language of this film, and just your choice of working with Christopher Doyle. Largely known to many people for his collaborations with Wong Kar-wai, and just really his contributions to Hong Kong cinema, like over the last 40 years. And he is this. I feel like he has this kind of profile of like the artist cinematographer. He's kind of someone who's built up a reputation of working on kind of the cusp of the industry in a lot of ways. And I'm just curious, what about his
What about it? Yeah.
perspective kind of drew you for this particular project?
Yeah, I mean, so Chris Doyle was the cinematographer of the movie, and he did a movie that I saw a poster outside. It was one of my favorite movies of all time, In the Mood for Love, which is out there, and he shot that. And that was the movie that I was like, I got to meet this guy. And he again represented that kind of, and it was true to form when I met him. This kind of not thinking, just going by instinct and gut kind of thing. And so I was drawn to all these artists that were going from not thinking, but from kind of an inspiration place. And he's a really big character. I don't know if he's like the Keith Richards of cinematographers. Legendary party, or at least at that time. And just wild. He came to the rap party in a diaper. That was it, just a diaper.
Inspirational.
Yeah, but see, that's how he is. He's provocative, and so I try to get partners that provoke me and challenge me and take me out of my comfort zone. We've spoken about this in a couple of the Q&As. That for me, how do you be an artist that maybe reached a lot of people with their art in their 20s, and then how can you do it in your 30s? In your 40s, in your 50s, and there's very few, if any, examples of it. And how does that happen? And so that's been the struggle for me of how to reinvent and risk, because who wants to? Everything in your body and your mind tells you to play it safe, or that and that's working against you. There is an ideal form of experience and inspiration and gut, and that ideal form often happens to artists early. And then you get enough inspiration and you get this perfect balance for a moment. And so how do you continually keep that like that? Don't let experience kind of protect you. And then once that happens, you're muted, you're blunted, and you can't do something exciting. And so this was kind of striving. And so I can still, when I came in here, I could still feel how naked I felt when I was making it, and how much every decision was as vulnerable as I could make it, and in the attempt to be new and fresh and start over again. I mean, I'm so protective of the thing that is me, and I can get so, as we all can, get so changed. And so I lived 3,000 miles away from Hollywood, and these were all, unconscious things to protect myself. And I'm very careful about what I watch. I'm very careful about the people that are around me, and I'm drawn to those that have very unique point of views. Doesn't even have to be an artist, anybody. And that's with I want someone to continually teach me to see the world new again. And that oftentimes is people that are not from the United States, or doing films in other countries who are seeing things differently, or younger people that haven't done much, and I give them a shot and they teach me.
I do want to open it up to the audience so that we have some time for audience questions. If you have any, just raise your hand and a mic will come to you. We'll get you right here. And just hold on for a mic.
While you're getting that microphone, I was just thinking, just reminded of, this movie, I think above all my movies, has what I call religion. It has a kind of people get really, really intensely connected to it. And I think that's because even as hopefully you can tell that I was coming from a very, very important source. And I was in the airport the other day, and someone came over, and there were tears in their eyes when they were talking about this. And I remember there was a person who was passing away. It was a kid who was passing away, and they kept watching this movie every day in their hospital room. And so I sent him a signed script, and his parents said he was holding it when he passed. The screenplay to this, and there's something. It's like an essence of who I am, or who I want, the thing of me that I want to protect, which maybe is in fairy tales. Maybe people that write fairy tales, that there's something about innocence or something you're trying to hold on to. I know that was long-winded, sorry.
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, I know that you really see this as a very honest and sincere fairy tale, but I was wondering, subconsciously in 2006, the year it was made, if you were thinking politically also, when you were making it, the backdrop. I couldn't help but think of the character Mr. Leeds and how he was saying at the moment, at the end of the movie, I just want to believe in something. There's all this bad things happening right now, and how much you want to believe in something. I always take something different when I watch and rewatch your films. And as a newly christened godmother, I watched this for the first time differently, and thinking about what's going on right now currently in the world, and thinking about my godson and what he's going to be dealing with in the world, and thinking about these the characters in the film, and trying to find purpose in the world that they were dealing with so far in the war that was going on in 2006. Kind of people coming home and not necessarily understanding a world with purpose. And I was wondering if you were maybe subconsciously thinking about that, while it also being a lovely fairy tale for children.
Well, first of all, love your shirt. You see this shirt?
You are on my shirt.
She's wearing a trap shirt. Thank you for the question. It's so lovely. I mean, a few of the things that were important were, our lack of connection to nature, and how we've lost our way when we're. There's this book I want to get you guys, by the way, and you all should read it, called Ishmael, and it's about how we lost our connection to nature when we started telling ourselves the stories that were more important than the tree and the animals and things like that. And there was a kind of a wisdom and a higher thing that was there. So partly it's that we're in this concrete apartment building, and they're trying to reach us, but we keep on not seeing them, and so that was there. It's probably true at that time. There was a sense. I actually always feel, and even right now, feel like darker times are a catalyst to expedite the intensity of the swing back. So that, you know, again, it may be an optimist's view of it, but that it's making, like, for example, like it's making thousands of activists, tens of thousands of activists, sounds like yourself, and that wouldn't be the case if we didn't have that challenge that's coming, and so, you know, at some point it will actually cause us to be farther ahead where we want it to be, and in this movie, I think the idea that we're all very, even the smallest thing that we do can have a ripple effect that we cannot imagine, that will have the change that will happen, and maybe not be you, but be the person that read something or heard something or realized something, or based on something you did, that you're a part of a chain of events, which is a kind of a beautiful, and something I do believe that all of us are, you know, that one of the people in here can change the whole thing, the whole world. You know, it isn't an ordained person necessarily.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right in the hat.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming out here. Your work is incredible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Lady in the Water was a beautiful film. It's something I would like to make. I'd like to make something like that one day.
Thank you. I'm sure you will.
I hope so. But I have just one question. When did you know you wanted to be a storyteller?
By the way, you have great dramatic pause.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Always. I was one of those little kids that knew I was, I mean, now it seems normal, right? Everyone has a camera, but when I was a little kid, no one had a camera. But my dad had an 8mm, and I started on that, and then the first VCR came, so it was like you connected the camera with like a cord to a VCR that's like this big, and then you carry it around. It wasn't meant to be that way. So then so I was doing that with my friends on the weekends as 10 years old, 11 years old, and then I read Spike's book, He's Gotta Have It, which is the making of She's Gotta Have It, and I was like, oh, there's a place in New York you go to school for film? I'm in. And I was telling my parents, who are both doctors, and all my aunts and uncles are doctors, so they weren't super excited about it. But I said that's where I want to go. So it was, it was a dream from go. And I don't know if you believe in all these manifestations and things. We can go deep into that on another time. But I truly believe in it. My room was full of posters, and the posters in front of me were Steven's posters. But they had, like, right when I'm going to bed, I'm seeing the producers' names that are there. And then they ended up being my producers, those same names that were there, and it's kind of this, again, we're gonna get into stuff like woo-woo stuff, but like if you have a dream, it's not just like you hold it and you see it like, I want to make a movie, I want to have this. It's a kind of like you have to draw it back to you in the kind of like quantum field to you with a feeling. And it's the feeling that makes it like strong. I don't understand why that works, but it works like that. And so many times that kind of thing has happened to me. And I think that's why I'm so overprotective of this thing, whatever this very fragile thing. Because I remember, like, every time I go to Los Angeles, I'm there for 2 days. I'm like racing to come back because something is like, you can feel there's something eating away at this thing that I'm talking about, which is why I love Bob Dylan, why I love, Chris's work in the Mood for Love, and this very fragile thing of the essence of who we each are that we can, and if you stay close to that, you're incredibly powerful, but we all get talked out of it, and I have been talked out of it, and so it's scary sometimes because, you want to be, you both want to be, we all like built, but we want to be individuals and be celebrated as individuals, seen, but we also want to be a part of the group more than anything. I want to be a part of this group in here. So it's this duality in us, and are we willing to give up some of ourselves? That's always what's happening as an artist. Should I give up this thing to be with the group? And then you can go the other way, which is you're rebelling because you're like, I don't want you guys. Screw you guys. I'm going to do this, and this, and that's also not being who you are. So there's a balancing act between, conceding and saying, I'll do whatever you want, to, hey, I don't care about you at all, which is neither is accurate or true. So when you're making a movie, there's a version of yourself that no one can duplicate. And you may find someone's movies like Quentin or someone or Chris's that you want to emulate, but then you'll be blunting, or even blunting who you are. There's another voice there that's yours. It's the most important. Good luck with your movie.
Thank you so much.
Let's go way in the back.
Hi.
Hey.
Speaking of ripple effects, my husband, who is here, was an extra in Lady in the Water when he was 12.
What?
And he's a successful, amazing guitarist, and he bought his first guitar with the wet pay from Lady in the Water. So ripple effect of Lady in the Water.
And he's come to play us a song. And
Exactly. So thank you.
wow.
I wanted to ask actually about the location where you made the film, because it's such a unique place, and how you found it, or what it is.
You mean the apartment building?
Yes, the
Yeah,
complex.
we built it. We built it outside that apartment building. I kept searching for like a shoehorn apartment anywhere within, driving distance of Philadelphia that had this that we could have a pool or even put in a pool, and it just, as you can imagine, that's a really complicated ask, and then to take it over and shoot it, and the lights and everything and the apartments that we needed, and eventually it just became clear we'd have to build it, so we ended up designing it and building it. So it was a big task, because we had the front and then certain floors that we could go on.
And the shape of the pool.
Yes, exactly. All of that had to be done up. I mean, a lot of times we build to my storyboard, so I draw everything out and then we build the sets to it. That was an extreme example of building the sets to, although the village as well, we built that whole village, so that was all built outside as well.
Okay, it's hard to pick on people. Yeah. Right here in the center. Yeah.
I don't envy you picking.
You pick the next one.
And thank you. This has been a really fun series. Getting to see your movies, some that I haven't seen growing up, some that I haven't seen in a while, and then the double features. You're like putting me on to movies. It's great. I'm curious, like, how this series came together. Like, who came to who, and like, did you have in mind the 12 that we have here? Were those your first choices, or like, did you say, hey, can we do this? And if you can't do this, are there backups? How were the 12 chosen? Can you talk about that?
Oh, great question. That would have been weird if I'm like, hey, dude, can you show my movies? That would have been weird if that was actually what happened. Hey, please just show my movies.
Really, I would have said yes.
No, they were super, super sweet, and I mean, you could say from your end, but I just got this ask. I forgot when it was, and I thought it would be just such a lovely thing to do to celebrate everybody that had done this stuff, but also to reflect and to convey gratitude for each and every one of them to you guys and to everyone in the, it's just such a rare thing. I mean, there's like, I think there's like 2 or 3 of us in the history of the movies that have had #1 movies, original movies, in 3 decades, 4 decades. This is, unbelievable. I mean, I'm beyond grateful and lucky, so this was kind of like, not to celebrate me, that's not at all what I was feeling. I was feeling like, take stock, be grateful, and this is an institution that I respect, and I do my premieres here a lot at Lincoln Center, so it felt very, appropriate. I went to school here, and so it felt a beautiful time, and I feel like I'm at like the halfway point, and so it feels like, halftime show. Who knows? But I feel also like that each movie could be the last one. I do think that way, and so you go at it with absolute love and dedication. So you guys came to me, and
Yeah, it was. It's a mid-career retrospective.
say it again.
mid-career retrospective. No, I wanted to meet Night since I was 9, so I just found a way. Thanks for showing up for it. No, I grew up with your movies, and I had so many memorable experiences watching your film in a cinema. Even just remembering where I was seated in the cinema when I saw certain films of yours, and I just count them among the most like formative film-going experiences for me. And I think it's kind of influenced sort of the kind of movie or the kind of feeling I look for when I go into a cinema. So,
Oh man,
thank you.
You're so kind. This dude, he's so sweet. And the pairing of them came from like finding. I picked 12 of them, and I just finished 17, so 16 were there, and I felt like the first 2 were kind of still in school kind of thing until I did Sixth Sense. That was my third. So a little bit I didn't put those 2, and I didn't put 2 in the middle, which I felt, just being frank, I felt more like that was me experimenting, not being me, and being a part of the system. And so it's not that at all that I regret or anything like that. It's just a part of the journey that was a detour for a moment to kind of get back to, hey everybody, this is who I am, 100%, love it or leave it, and getting to that place again, and you have to go and feel the box and feel the thing that you are, and that was part of the journey. But I picked the 12 that were from the beginning to today, that were this movement and they were mainly thrillers that I picked.
Do you want to pick the next one?
No, God, you do. Okay. It's too scary.
I'll get you right here in the front. Yeah. Or hold on 1 second for the mic.
Thank you. Thank you for showing all these movies, and I'm glad you picked mention you go to film school, like NYU Tisch. Was it Tisch? I'm going to Tisch right now.
Yes.
So one of the things that I'm struggling with as like I learn the technical and like I guess the creative artistic ways to show movies is like pertaining to race, and like I was like there's always like different points of views between artists and directors of like how much they identify with their race and culture, whether it's like all of them or in part, or and like how much the movies they make, whether like how much of their cast is their same race and culture, and how much of the movies they make are the race and culture they grew up with. And I was wondering, because I'm struggling, wondering how much the movies I want to make in the future are about the races and cultures I'm familiar and I grew up with. Like, how did you ever like face those pressures, and like how did you, if you did, like how did you think through it? And
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very, very much a kind of irrational thing. Like I think of some image or something, and then I just follow it, and then by being who I am, then you can sense that my family's from India, and that and they live all over the world. You'll get that from the kind of the steeping it in spirituality as supernatural. The point of view is just it just is slightly different. I was talking with John Chu, the director of Wicked and all these movies, and we were just talking about being Asian filmmakers, and he was telling me about his dad. They own a Chinese restaurant in San Francisco, his family, and how his dad has a table with all the magazine articles of his son. And you come into the Chinese restaurant, and the father will sign them for you as you get Chinese food. And that's so Asian, and so my parents as well. And so I was like, yeah, my dad has some like magazines on plaques in his house, like all the magazine covers on plaques, and he used to carry them around, or he would order gum even with his card so they'd see the last name, and they'd be like, "Are you related to?" And he's like, "Yes, that's my son." And it's so that beautiful immigrant. I hope we make it. I hope they see us. I hope I can shine, and that chip on the shoulder. That's so beautiful, and the struggle of that. So that comes out in it, and it's probably on both sides of the camera that it comes out. So it's not something I think through. I don't go with an intellectual agenda, although that's not that doesn't mean that that's wrong, where you're like, I want to make a story of this and go do it. That may drive you. Most of the time for me, it'll be like someone's in a car in a field and there's a gun on the seat and they're sitting in a field. Why? And then I'll go, huh? And then I'll go this, and then, they're waiting to meet someone. Why are they meeting? What did they do wrong? Blah, 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 and then it'll start. And then I hear a noise, something's in the trunk, and then boom, 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 and you keep going, and so I'm so excited in the morning to figure out when I'm writing what happened, and so I just follow it inherently. And then sometimes I find when I start using, and I always tell this to Salika when she's on stage, and which is I'll yell at her when she's doing sound check, stop being so Asian, and because she's like trying to get an A, trying to get an A. The Asian F is an A-. You guys all know that, right? And so that to get it out of your head, especially as Asians, we're taught to if we follow this thing and do this thing, we'll get an A, and that's not art. Art is messy. After all of this, you want to do everything you just said, and then you'll end up making a movie about a barista that moves you deeply, and you don't know why, right? And that's beautiful. You don't even need to know why. It'll drive you, and we'll feel it.
Thank you.
Let's get that hand way up. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Pranav. I'm a huge film buff. I have one question for you. Have you been influenced by Alfred Hitchcock in terms of psychological atmosphere and deep characterization?
First of all, great voice.
Thank you.
Great delivery, just great diction, and yes, for sure. Probably, on a scale that I can't even comprehend. There's sometimes I watch filmmakers or artists, and I'm so in awe of how they do it, and I have no idea why or how they got there to do the thing that they do. Like the filmmakers that do these big, huge spectacle movies, I'm in awe of it. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm in awe of it. But Alfred Hitchcock's movies, I go, oh, I understand innately why he's moving the camera, why he chose that lens, why he did the humor at that moment. There's like a language that makes so much sense to me. So as a teacher, like his class is the one that I want to go to over and over and over again to learn from. So that formality and the way he thought and the way he moved, and the kind of the flair that he had, and it all feels so right. And he teaches me every time I watch one of his movies. He really does. If you come to our house, I have all the first edition of his posters on the hallway to the movie theater. So when you go to see a movie at our house, you see all of his posters there. So it's a little bit of a shrine to him. So bordering on obsession. So there's like a moment in Psycho where he's holding the tray outside the room, and she's like, do you want to come in to the room? And the camera pulls back, and it becomes a wider shot of the two of them. And for whatever reason, that opened up cinema for me. That he's losing ground, and his world just got, he got unstable, and I was like, whoa, and what that meant times 1,000 on every single shot. So yeah, big deal. He's a big deal.
We'll get the baseball hat.
Each question causes a multiplication of hands going up. I'm like, am I making you guys confused? Or
I just wanted to ask, you kind of touch on it in the movie, but water is such especially in this and Signs and Unbreakable, is such a recurring element. And I just wanted to ask, looking back on the movie now, or just in the retrospective, kind of what it means to you.
Yeah, it just is such an element, popped into my head when you were talking, you know, it was like, you know, me making movies about families, you know, like filmmakers go back and keep touching on the same themes, like Scorsese and gangster movies. I guess families are my gangsters. Or like, I keep going about water is something I keep going back to and back to. I don't know why, it just feels so magical and otherworldly. The movie I just finished, Remain, it has a big element of it emotionally. In that particular movie, it means something different than it does in this movie. And so I wrote it for New England at the edge on a cliffside above water for a reason, that movie. And so it repeats and repeats, whatever that means, the unknown, or there's something. And in our rituals, Indian rituals, it's, you know, as in a lot of rituals, the purification of water, it's very, very potent and you know, this magical thing that exists in our life. So I tend to see it that way. You know, the things that I'm drawn to, reflections and water, and they just all seem very mystical to me.
Time for a couple?
Yeah, we'll do a couple more. I mean, I'll stay here. I don't know.
You right here? Yes.
First of all, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love this movie to death, and I was very happy to see it on the big screen. I wanted to ask about your performance in this film, because I've always been very drawn to your performance in this film. I think you do a great job, and it's sort of like out of step for you to like have like a well-defined character that like goes beyond the cameo in your films. And I just like was wondering like where in the process you decided to do that, and like if that possessed any challenges.
To answer the question of me being in it in a bigger way, I'm trying to remember what, you know, maybe it was because it was so intimate to our family, and you know, I love being in them. They just have to have the right roles that make sense. I talked about this before because, you know, you can't just be you know, at least times are getting better now in the sense of that, but me being Indian is too interesting. Be like, oh, she's married to an Indian. I wonder what that means. It's like, didn't mean it to be. It's just a husband, or, you know. and so, but this one, it was so, you know, the belief that we could be somebody that could affect somebody else that could then change the world, is a kind of someone that doesn't believe that. So that's, you know, and then comes to believe that she teaches him that you're important, that. So that it was always very, very, you know, and I really enjoyed being in Signs when I did Signs, which was again a meteor part in that one, and I enjoyed it. It made it feel more personal, the movie, to me, the experience of making, because when you're acting, it's a very raw, kind of beautiful, vulnerable thing. It is very challenging for me, being as specific as I am as a storyteller, to kind of turn that part of my brain off. And like, for example, like when I just did this movie, and I have a part in this movie, I was so into what I was doing as an actor that I didn't tell them exactly when to do the zoom and exactly what the frame is when he entered. So then when I finally saw it, I was so angry. I was like, no, he needed to come in like this, and the whole shot was meant to be like this. But so it's a challenge, because one side of your brain you're using, and the other one you're just reacting, and then trying to be present. It's very, I find it amazing, the writer-director or the director-actors that are out in the world, how they balance doing both of them. It's a tricky thing, but I love being a part of the storytelling.
Okay, I think there was a mic given to someone way in the back. Yeah.
Hello. I came here from Chicago to see this incredible film.
Oh man, thank you so
much. One of my many jobs is to be a high school film instructor, and seeing all your works in a row, the importance of the perspective of children, it rises to the surface. Something that my students struggle with sometimes is sincerity. Can you talk about a little bit the importance of sincerity in your work, and some advice for younger people to be sincere?
Wow, you're blowing my mind with that question. Because this is kind of how to navigate this has been a little bit of the struggle of my life, because as a person, if you come talk to me, I will be incredibly earnest. I can make fun of you too. I can definitely make fun of you, but I will be invariably, I'm going to say something incredibly earnest. And in the context of a one-on-one relationship, you'll understand that, oh wow, he really believes this deeply, and you won't have that a kind of a reaction to it. But in fiction, when you're being earnest, it's a little bit of like it's a hard one. It's provoking, and it's a how dare you, and so it's a tricky balance. This thing of sincerity, because it's so much easier to write back that ass up and get a reaction. You know it's going to get a reaction. It's going to be easy, as opposed to I love you, which is going to piss off a lot of people. Like zero risk on back that ass up. And you know it's going to get the intended thing. And so it's like when I say that, so we use sarcasm and in our daily life all the time now to protect us, to the point that it's being sincere and earnest is, it's just, what do the kids say, ick? What do you got? So, but it's me, and I basically use genre entirely just so I can be earnest and sincere, like pound you guys into oblivion and then have these moments where whatever they're in the car at the end and he says tells his mom and in Sixth Sense, or they're on the porch and in the village, or on the whatever it is that I'm trying to be honest with who I am, because that is who I am, so I can't not do it. So but it's in there. The sincerity of it is in there. Bruce saying to his wife, saying I wake up with grayness, and how did you know when the marriage was over? Oh, when I had a nightmare and I didn't wake you up. Those lines, like those are earnest lines. And so I use genre to kind of mask it a little bit, or give it an entryway, because I think everyone wants to get to those meaningful things, but they're not necessarily ready right away. If you think of it as a date, that I'm on a date with everyone when they come to the movie, and you don't want to start like, hi, how are you? My name's Knight. Tell me about the worst thing that happened to you. And you're like, let's talk about that. And they're like, whoa, let's, sell a few jokes first. And and so there's a sense of like letting down your guard or trusting that happens with genre. I think that's a beautiful thing, and it's a great metaphor for things that you want to talk about that are deeper, like all the things we've been saying. So I use it to cloak my earnestness. My first films, the first two films, were so earnest, and I think that they were leading with my heart, and then I kind of have to have maturity to kind of say, okay, a touch will go a long way. Like when I was writing Sixth Sense, I was like, don't you write an emotional line until the end. Don't do it. Like I was getting angry with myself. Don't you do it. And my hand kept going to write this thing, and like, don't do it. Because I'm like, as I'm writing, I'm getting emotional, writing it. And, like when I wrote the line, that Paul was saying, I miss your faces. They remind me of God, like weeping when I wrote it. And it's like, you have to choose those moments, gotta earn it to get to that sentimentality. But I don't think it's part about being honest with yourself. Again, they're gonna get a reaction, and that they have to be okay with that reaction of whatever they are, because it's, as I said, it's gonna make you so powerful if you totally are at ease with who you are. The things that embarrass you as well, that if you can find the right balance, your students, their voice will be incredibly powerful. But the part of the process is imitating first. So they are going to imitate first, and then find, wow, the imitation's feeling hollow to me for some reason.
Well, thank you for being.
Oh man, this is so sad.
I
Thank you guys.
thank you for
Brother.
sharing your work with us and for your generosity just being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.